Christine was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. She has been a journalist with the El Paso Times and the Austin American-Statesman. She is a reporter at the Fredericksburg Standard-Radio Post. Her second book of fiction, Fight Like a Man and Other Stories We Tell Our Children, was published by University of New Mexico Press, 2017. Please welcome Christine Granados.
Can everybody hear me? Because I have a teeny voice, I've been told.
Get close.
Okay, I need to be louder.
Good.
Good? Everybody can hear me, even the back? Well, thanks. Thank you for coming out. I understand that time is our most precious commodity, so I really appreciate seeing everybody here. And I want to thank you, Allison Moore, for keeping this Why There Are Words alive in Austin and Malvern books. Awesome. I've never been to this bookstore, and I love it. But I'll buy as soon as I'm done. And Lo, I don't know if I ever thanked you for helping me publish this book. He was a reader for the University of New Mexico Press, and he gave it a thumbs up. So thank you. I don't know, and I'm really looking forward to seeing Missy and Phil. So I'm excited about that. Okay, Allison told me that the theme of the reading is lighting out. She said this encompasses journey, displacement, escape, quest, or conversely, the longing to leave without being able to do so. And I have, I think, the perfect story for that, which is one of the short stories in my collection, and it's titled Addressed. So the story was inspired by my father and my mother. My father died in a hospital in 2014 after a long illness, and you'll be able to see how the story is influenced by this experience. And my mother's influence comes in the way of one of her quirks. She has these address books, paper address books, not on the phone. And every time I look in the address book, I can never find anything in it. I was home this summer, and I was looking for an old childhood friend of mine, Laura Benavides. So I looked under the B for Benavides, and she wasn't listed. So I said, oh, she probably put it under L for Laura. And I looked under L, and it wasn't there. And so I was like, Mom, where is Laura Benavides' phone number? And she thought a moment, and she said, oh, it's under C for Chris's friend. And I said, well, of course it is. Okay. So this is the story titled Addressed. My mother has been gone for an hour, and I don't want to call everyone with the news, but I have to. I sit on this plastic green bucket seat in the sterile hallway of the hospital and run my fingers over the beige color dividers, trying to remember if my mother labeled her sister's phone number under V for Vanessa or S for sister. When I flip the gilt-edged pages, searching for my aunt's phone number, the information isn't in either place. It's just like her to make things more difficult. She never does what is practical, easy. I've told her countless times, normal people order their address book by the first letter in the person's last name. All you need to do is look inside a phone book. Mom usually says, that's why you can't find anything in that stupid book. I snort out a laugh and I shake my head. Then I press my fingers on the dividers until they bend. Why can't she just use the things the way they were meant to be used? Is that so difficult for her to understand? Was that so difficult for her to understand? Why was it such a hard thing for her to do? I flip to the letter T, and I rip the wax paper thick page near the bottom. T for Tia, aunt in Spanish. And there is Aunt Vanessa's phone number, directly above Aunt Dee Dee's. I stare at the looped letters of my mother's writing until my eyes blur wet. I shut the pocketbook and clutch its shiny periwinkle blue cover so that it bends in my grip. Tears fall on the gold lettering that reads Bonnie Archuleta. and I wrung my fingers across the engraved letters to wipe the drops off, but also to touch her name, as if that will bring her closer to me, bring her back. And in a way it does. I can remember her at the flea market when I was a kid. We would always stop by the booth filled with cheap vinyl-covered books. It had calendars, address books, Bibles, journals, and planners in pink, yellow, white, baby blue. All the colors people would not buy. A one-legged man ran the Easter booth, which is what we call it. He perched next to the books on a tall stool with only one back spindle. His engraving machine cart, made from an old popcorn maker, sat on the other side of him. When someone wanted a book engraved, he would spin around, open the doors to the popcorn maker, and suggest to the person that they stand on the other side to watch him work. From the other side, through the glass, was a view of the top of his head, with thick black hair and vials filled with colored powders lining the bottom of the glass. In the kettle, where the popcorn should go, he kept an electric drill and needles of varying widths and sizes. He would plug his electric drill into the fat orange power cord and dip the needle, fashioned out of an ice pick or a knife, into a vial, and time would stand still. He worked with the slow precision of a scientist splitting atoms, careful and deliberate, because he could not read. My mother picked up a book from his display, one with a white cover, and laid it in front of the man. Then took the cardboard with names written on it, flipped it over, crossed out the names, Chewy, Roberta, and wrote Carmen Archuleta in large block letters for the man to copy. The engraver smiled, took the cardboard, propped it against the back of the glass, the popcorn machine, so I had to stand on tiptoes to see him work, and began engraving. When he finished, my name was printed in gold glittery letters underneath the title, Nuevo Testamento, Salmos y Proverbios. Mom had no idea she'd picked up a Bible. $20, he had told her. Mom gasped. Are you crazy? He shook his head, then in perfect English said, the word of God has no price. Mom looked over at me and then at the man. She said, I feel that way exactly, and then handed him the $10 bill. He took it without word. She shoved the book in my hands and walked toward the booth of socks. I stood there for a minute and opened the book in the middle to Psalms, and I realized it was written in Spanish. At 8 years old, I was just getting the hang of reading English, but I kept the book. It was the first and only my mother bought me. I grip the address book, and I shake my head at the memory. I lower my eyes whenever someone passes by in the hallway. I notice that the golden A in Archuleta on the cover is slanted, like on my Spanish language New Testament, and I shut my eyes tight. This address book in my hand is brand new, as if my mother were planning for today. Throughout the years, she had always asked me why I didn't just throw the Bible away. Said she hated the gaudiness of it. When I told her because she bought it for me, she would sigh. That sound could only mean one of two things. Either she was getting ready to yell at someone, or she was pleased. She was like that, my mother. Either high or low, no in between. She never made me throw the Bible out, even when it was smeared with black fingerprints. It's that Mom hated dirt, filth, the hint of it, the sight of it, the idea of it. And I can remember stumbling into the bathroom late at night and seeing her in there, on her knees, scrubbing the toilet bowl with a rag, muttering, no one is ever going to call me dirty. The tacky Bible was our secret language of love. Whenever Mom needed to hear something sweet or feel good, she would start harping about my filthy Bible, the dusty book with its ugly cover. Throw it away, she would say. I would reply, never, because you gave it to me. It was our shorthand for I love you, without actually having to admit it. And here it is again, the shorthand, in this pale blue address book I hold. I'm sure she bought it at the flea market, There is no mistaking the color. She bought it specifically for this day, a day I've dreaded since she was diagnosed. In my mother's cockeyed way, she picked this address book just for me, to help me through having to call everyone. My ex-stepdad, my aunts, uncles, my grandparents, her friends, boyfriends. She knew that I would keep this book, not because it's my favorite color, but because she left it for me. I can't bring myself to call Aunt Vanessa, so I look up my ex-stepfather, Zachary Smith. I look under C for cabron. And he's the second person listed. The first is her brother, Uncle Manny. I chuckle and wipe my eyes with my free hand, trying to decide if she'd put him under C because he liked to eat cabrito or because he was a cabron too. Theo Manny was always sleeping around on my Aunt Didi, who Mom called Tonta. The nickname stuck, and everyone in the family called Didi Don for short. I laugh out loud when I realize Mom put Didi under the letter T with Vanessa, not because she's my aunt, but because of her nickname. A nurse walking by in scrubs smiles. Her flirty mouth reminds me of Mom, and I check under D for daughter, looking for my name within the pages, but only see her gay friend Osvaldo, who she refers to as that dog. I flip through the pages carefully toward the back of the book to the W's for whiner. She always called me that because I hated to clean. I sit up, worried she didn't put me in this, her last address book. I decide to read it like an ordinary book, beginning on page 1. I open it and read, "This address book belongs to Bonnie Archuleta," in her jagged, thin scrawl. Her address and phone number were probably pinned in a hurry. I can tell by the way they tilt right, running off the page. The next sheet begins the A tab, and there I am, the first entry, right at the top page. Carmen Archuleta. And that was addressed. You enjoyed it? Before I leave, I just have a request. If you all own an address book, please use it properly. Thank you.